Thanks, guys, for that first carrier update this morning. It's time now to welcome our Detroit Bureau Chief, Alan Adler, for today's top story of the day. Alan, thank you for joining us, and we're talking all about used truck prices today.
But, Kaylee, before we do that, I've talked about something we wrote about yesterday, which was kind of, we tripped over it. And it's funny because it's not the way that you would typically introduce a new vehicle. I keep an eye on what happens with recalls, safety recalls for the trucking space. And yesterday, Daimler posted a Western Star recall for three models, 49X and 47X, which are actually in the market, and one for the so-called 57X, which isn't in the market. Now, a few months ago, we wrote about canceled orders for the predecessor model to what we think would probably be the 57X, but Daimler's not talking about it. There's no such thing. Well, this time, because they built some of these and they still own them and they're using them for testing, there's a part on the hood that falls off, can fall off. It's a very small number of them that do, and nobody's been hurt. But that ended up revealing or confirming the fact that there's a 57X truck out there, or will be. And they really can't deny it. Once you tell NHTSA that you're recalling it, it's kind of there. But it's not the way the marketing guys probably would want to introduce that truck. So I just thought it was fun. And so we wrote the recall story based on that rather than, 2,200 trucks because of a part falling off, just kind of fun. And the Daimler guys were like, yeah, okay, well, we don't have anything to say. But anyway,
was that a mistake? Was somebody thought it was already out there, or was that a legal? Just because it was in the process.
That's right. They had actually built trucks. I'm thinking it's probably as few as half a dozen. Okay. They didn't break out the numbers, but they were already in testing. They were part of this issue with the supplier, and so it gets swept up in the recall. And again, I don't know how many people would even notice it, but I saw it, and because we had this issue with the canceled orders of the 5700 EX last year, which was a pretty big story for us, and so now we find out that we really are going to replace it, and they've always said they would. They just didn't say what it would be or when. But now we know, at least thanks to the NHTSA filing, that it's going to happen. So anyway, I thought that was fun. But on to used trucks. I wish we had a different story to tell here, but we really don't. It's still a supply and demand, and there just isn't a supply of trucks out there. We saw a little bit of movement in March in terms of older, not even really older, but higher mileage used trucks at auction. Prices came down a little bit, but not a great deal. I spent swapped some messages with Chris Vischer at JD Power Evaluation Services, and that'll form somewhat what we're going to write later this morning. But he just said, we don't see anything that's really changing this market right away. I mean, you've had rising prices for almost 2 years, and I said, well, when will we start to see comparisons that get away from the prices are up 90% year over year? And he said, it'll be a while. We don't know exactly when. It could be 6 to 8 months. So you see things start to moderate a little bit. You do have maybe some easing of the supply chain issues that are preventing new trucks from being built. And of course, these two are linked. I mean, you're not going to have many good low mileage used trucks to sell in the secondary market until you have new trucks to replace them. So, with the very tight control that the manufacturers are putting on basically just building, accepting orders only for what they know they can build. This pent up demand is still out there, and it's affected the used truck market. And obviously with these very high prices. And I think I saw one. Oh gosh, there's one thing in a Ritchie Brothers auction. It was a Class 8. It was an 8x4. Michael, you know more about this than I would, but I want to say the price was over $200,000, which is, for a used truck, that's pretty good money, right?
Yeah, that's if you're selling it, it's good money. I guess,
right? Buying it, right? Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you something here, Alan. Here with this quick break is so the enterprise fleets, right? Back in when 18 into 19, when the bottom was we were starting to come down out of this trough, right? I had a lot of calls from enterprise fleets, et cetera, talking about the used truck prices, and how to utilize that to figure out when to offload some of their older fleet, right, at a better price instead of holding on to it, because they're playing that fine line, right, keeping this older fleet on to keep capacity and keep going after all that, the great money that is out there and all that freight that is out there, but also offload it before the value falls out of it. Which way does this play this year? Is this because it's still up? Is that kind of a sigh of relief a little bit with those enterprise and larger fleets, so they can hold on to it a little bit longer and still get rid of it, or are they just saying, "Hey, I'll hold on to it forever because you know what? I don't have to sell it at 190,000. I can still sell it at 50,000 in a year when it bottom drops out, right?"
Right. Well, here's a couple things that are going on. One is that those older trucks are being kept on the road longer. We've talked about that in the past. Sure. That puts a lot of pressure on the maintenance operations. We talked with Nussbaum recently, and they've got strong maintenance operations and are counting on keeping their Freightliners running longer than they would. You might be looking at 6 months longer on the trade cycle now, and that sort of thing. As far as pricing goes, though, it strictly comes back to that supply-demand thing. We'd have to bring Anthony in to explain that to us. But, it's just you can't get the trucks. And so it almost doesn't matter what the price is at this point because, but I asked the question of Chris Fisher. I said, so when we see when we see spot rates coming down and we see tender rejections, when the market is loosening and things like that, what's that doing to used truck price? He says, it isn't doing anything. He said, because there's such an undersupply that it just isn't having that impact. So when I saw these numbers for March and I saw that, we saw this, a certain segment of the auction, got a little cheaper. I thought, oh, well, maybe there's a connection there. No, there's really not. It's just that these are older trucks that are finding the way in. That partially addresses your question, Michael, is, when are they dropping the older trucks into auction? And I think if they run well, they're staying on the road. And if not, they're going into auction. And the auction people are seeing that, right? They're looking at that. We've got some really nice pictures now that Jim Allen took out at one of the Ritchie Brothers auctions recently. And you can see that these guys are going over these and they know exactly what they're looking for. They can see sort of the health and condition of the trucks that they're gonna bid on.
Alan, were there any numbers released in the report of how many more used trucks are entering the auction market in the month of March? Or are we seeing an increase in that as people start to get some of their new builds into their fleet?
I'm not really getting numbers that are associated with the auctions. One of the things that is tracked on the retail side, at the dealership level, is sort of the number of sales per rooftop, as they call it, or per dealership, and it's sort of the same number are being sold, month over month. We've kind of had a couple months now, according to ACT Research, where we're seeing that go up a little bit on the retail side. The retail pricing is a little different though than the auction pricing. They've been able to get, maybe not as good a prices as you do an auction because you don't have as much competition, and depending on how the business is run, they may want to just turn it and earn it, right? I mean, get it out of there and let it go if it's 25% above or whatever that number might be. I'm making that up. But the idea is that, your flow through retail is going to be a little quicker, I think, whereas you're going to have, the auctions, they could, just like on eBay, we could drive up prices of things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine that pressure is still on with the limitation of production still, right? Is that getting any better, or is we just still in the same?
Maybe, Michael, maybe a little better. There's some indications that some things are easing in supply chain, not really semiconductors, though. And I think one of the things that we're going to be watching now is at what point will customers or fleets be willing to take trucks that maybe have certain functions that aren't working? And I'm not exactly sure what those might be right now. But if you're willing to accept a truck that doesn't have everything the way it should, and maybe you come back in and have it retrofit when they get chips, then that might increase the market a little bit. You might just have to get used to, we overuse the term new normal, but that might be the normal, because if we're not going to have enough chips to go around, they're going to apply those chips where they need them for safety systems and things like that. But, it might not be, the chips might not be available for certain functions that you might have had. And if you're willing to accept a truck like that, then you can get a truck.
So, Alan, just to be clear, is this something that you're seeing or people are talking about, or are we just speculating here?
No, we're seeing that as a speculation on the part of experts, not mine.
Gotcha. I got you. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much. And hey, good to see you this week, my friend. Maybe I'll see you a little later this week as well. And coming up pretty soon. Yeah, I'll see you in Northwest Arkansas, I think, though. Anyways. But,
what's that again? No, you won't. I'm going to be at the Advanced Clean Truck Expo in California. But no, I won't be down there. But if I was, I would want to talk to Billy Beane because I'm a huge Moneyball fan.
Oh yeah, Moneyball. Absolutely.
That would be the interview I'd want to do if I could go.
I'd be shocked if you didn't say that, my friend Alan. Hey, check out Alan's stuff on freightwaves.com. Always interesting, always insightful. Thank you so much, my friend. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Right now, I'm going to toss it over to Kaylee Nix and the weather.